This podcast holds nothing sacred. This is Life, Tech, and Sundry. And what is Sundry? It's our experiences put in a melting pot to the internet. So join us on this wild ride called the LTS Podcast. Follow us at LT Sundry on Twitter, LTS.pod on Instagram, Life, Tech, and Sundry on YouTube, and all your favorite podcast distribution services. Stay frosty.
The illusion of value and the ancient barter trap. The other morning, I was sitting down for breakfast with my family, drinking a cup of coffee, delicious by the way, when we got into a massive debate about the sheer absurdity of human economic value. We were looking at the astronomical prices of tickets for the FIFA World Cup. By the way, peeking behind the curtain, FIFA World Cup 2026 has already ended for a while right now. Congratulations, Spain. But had to let this cook. Didn't want to overwhelm the FIFA popularity. No. Want to give it my own taste. So, here we go. Where was I? Oh yeah, running into a ticket, by the way, for the FIFA World Cup, running into the thousands of dollars and comparing it to the absolute back-breaking grind of people working everyday street markets. We did some quick math on a local market vendor in Mexico selling nopales. Delicious, by the way. These are individual cactus pads priced at $1, or in this case, for the Mexico value, 1 singular peso each. I'm going to keep it in pesos for this example. Right down the street, a standard haircut in the same town, in the same area, costs around 200 pesos. Think about it. A barber performs a haircut, around 20 minutes of service, and to match that value, a street vendor has to harvest, clean, transport, and sell literal hundreds of physical goods. Perishable physical goods. But as we were talking, a specific memory hit me that made me and this whole thing feel incredibly heavy. I pictured a customer walking up to that cactus vendor's stand. The vendor is standing there in the heat, having put actual blood, sweat, tears, and hours of their life into harvesting those sharp plants. But the buyer doesn't know that story. And honestly, they don't care. They just want a better deal. So they start haggling, trying to beat the price down even lower because some other vendor down the street is desperately undercutting the market, selling 2 pads for 1 peso. Personally, I've always seen that kind of aggressive haggling as a direct insult to the seller, any seller. The vendor wants to price their goods at the absolute highest level to maximize and validate their human effort. But the buyer is playing a cynical race to the bottom. It shows just how fundamentally messed up our sense of value is. And don't get me wrong, that cactus pad is really, really nutritious. Look up the stats, they speak on their own. Yet, the market actively minimizes its worth. You can never naturally stack enough of those hard-earned perishable goods to equal the elite value of a World Cup ticket, unless you completely abandon raw utility and use narrative marketing to convince the world that your vegetable is the ultimate must-have luxury product on earth. Salutations. I'm your host, Marcos Lopez, and you're tuned into LTS Out of Office, the solo episode where we pull back the curtain on our everyday financial assumptions before the psychological tricks of the market leave your wallet completely hollow. Grab your coffee, step out of the office, and lock in. Because when bartering, you're either setting the price or getting bargained into the dirt, starting with the Mesopotamian cradle and the wants friction. Long before coins or digital ledgers existed, humanity relied on direct asset exchange. It was a system that successfully built early tribal communities, but carried an evolutionary expiration date because it completely ignored human empathy. The trading post in ancient Mesopotamia and early Egypt Barter wasn't a casual hobby. It was the primary lifeblood of survival. Tribes traded excess grains for livestock, sheep for obsidian tools, and beer for physical labor. It was a world built on immediate physical utility, where you couldn't eat. And when value is tied strictly to immediate survival, a race to the bottom naturally occurs. Just like the modern buyer playing street vendors against each other for a 2-for-1 deal. Ancient barterers faced the same cold reality. If a competitor was desperate enough to give away twice as much grain for a single sheep because their kids were starving, the true value of your hard labor was wiped out instantly by a cynical market. Fundamentally, this ancient foundation was, to its core, broken by a brutal economic law of double coincidence of wants. For a trade to occur, both parties must simultaneously desire exactly what the other person's holding. It required a cosmic alignment of mutual desperation just to execute a basic Tuesday transaction. If our nopal vendor walked into an ancient marketplace needing a haircut, but the barber already had a full stomach and zero use for cactus, the entire transaction collapsed instantly. Trying to force a perfect match manually creates immense friction, like the chaotic, fast-talking trade deadlock scene in Uncut Gems, the TV show. A deal dies in real time simply because two humans can't find an overlapping physical need. Because goods like vegetables, livestock, and grain are inherently perishable, time was the ultimate enemy for the seller. You couldn't dig your heels in and demand a higher price to respect your effort. Your assets would literally rot, wither, or die in the sun if you didn't sell them immediately. Perishability turns every seller into a desperate hostage of time. Barter completely lacks a mechanism for long-term capital accumulation, meaning wealth had a literal shelf life. You couldn't save for retirement in a barter economy unless you wanted a vault full of liquefying onions and dead goats. It kept humanity in a perpetual state of immediate hyperlocal survival, unable to build complex societal infrastructure. The person with the less perishable items always had the structural leverage in any negotiation. The guy trading salt or flint arrowheads could wait you out forever. Meanwhile, holding a basket of fresh fish or ripe cactus pads, you watched your net worth decay by the hour. It wasn't trade, it was a slow motion leverage squeeze. To be completely fair to our ancestors, barter was incredibly honest because value was tied directly to immediate survival utility. If an item couldn't feed you, clothe you, or protect you from an enemy, its value dropped to zero. This meant there was absolutely no room for synthetic hype, even if it meant the small guy was always at the mercy of immediate demand. This primitive item-for-item survival grid worked perfectly for localized tribes, but the second humanity wanted to protect the value of human labor across vast distances without watching their wealth rot in the sun, the ancient barter system hit a concrete glass ceiling that altered human history forever. This brings me to the second part, the sovereign glass ceiling and the birth of the coin. To break through the limitations of rotting vegetables, unhungry barters, and disrespectful haggling, human civilizations engineered a massive psychological upgrade. They invented a universal abstract middleman called currency. Around 600 BCE, the Lydians in modern-day Turkey introduced the world's first standardized precious metal coins. Suddenly, wealth was completely detached from perishable food, or it was locked permanently into abstract gold and silver tokens stamped with the face of a king. Money instantly solved the indivisibility problem that completely paralyzed traditional asset exchanges. You couldn't easily chop a live cow or a heavy piece of machinery in half to buy a small basket of fruit without ending up with a dead cow and zero value. But you could easily hand over a single standardized token. This invention fundamentally rewired, if you will, the human brain and altered how we calculate our time. We stopped looking at items for their raw, immediate physical usefulness. We started measuring them against an arbitrary, imaginary number scale, whether that scale was measured in ancient shekels, historical pesos, or modern US dollars. The real magic trick of currency is that it serves as a reliable storage tank for human time and physical labor. Our street market vendor no longer had to find a barber who wanted vegetables right that second. They could sell the vegetables to anyone, pocket the coin, and hold that purchasing power indefinitely until they were ready to buy a haircut. The second currency standardized, the state realized whoever mints the coin rules the population. Sovereigns declared the public debts, and taxes could only be paid in their proprietary stamped metals. This rendered localized barter networks legally obsolete and forced citizens into the centralized state ledger under threat of violence. Currency shifted humanity from a system of tangible wealth to a system built entirely on shared hallucinations. Gold and silver have minimal actual survival utility. You can't eat a gold coin to stave off starvation. Yet we collectively agreed to let these shiny bits of metal dictate who eats and who starves, creating a massive psychological gap between price and actual human survival. Converting physical items into digital or paper numbers functions exactly like a historical tech transition. It feels reminiscent of sci-fi psychological dramas like Mr. Robot. Heavy material reality is cleanly stripped away and replaced by fluid, highly trackable tokens of abstract power. Let's give credit where it's due. Currency is arguably the most successful tool for human cooperation ever designed. It allowed completely anonymous strangers from different cultures speaking different languages to instantly agree on a transaction without needing to trust each other. This completely shattered the localized trap. Standardizing value into coins and cash completely shattered the ancient physical bottlenecks of trade. But setting a fixed monetary scale unlocked a far more dangerous psychological matrix. If value is no longer tied to physical survival or the blood and sweat of production, then whoever controls the story of an asset controls its price. This brings us to manufactured value and the ultimate marketing matrix. In a world completely detached from raw barter, price tags have almost nothing to do with availability, exclusivity, or the actual labor required to make the product. Instead, value is entirely manufactured by narrative marketing. Look back to our breakfast debate. A cactus pad costs 1 peso because it is viewed purely as a basic commodity. Meanwhile, a FIFA World Cup ticket costs thousands of dollars. Is the stadium ticket thousands of times more essential to human life or survival than physical food? Absolutely not. Yet, our psychological systems value it exponentially more. The FIFA ticket commands massive value because of a hyper-aggressive global marketing apparatus. They have spent decades transforming a basic sports match into a holy cultural pilgrimage. They aren't selling a piece of printed cardboard. They are selling a status, identity, and a one-in-a-lifetime emotion. If our street vendor kept selling raw cactus pads on the corner, they would stay trapped at the mercy of cynical, haggling customers forever. They may be there until this day. But if an elite marketing agency stepped in, rebrands the nopal as a superfood ancestral elixir, packages it in an aesthetic glass bottle, and gets a Hollywood celebrity to hold it on Instagram, that exact same plant instantly skyrockets from 1 peso to maybe $20, an example. Modern pricing mechanics completely decouple the reward from actual physical effort and time invested by the creator. The vendor who bleeds in the sun to grow the product gets pennies. Meanwhile, the executive sitting in an air-conditioned room who invents the font on the luxury juice bottle takes a 90% margin cut. The market doesn't reward labor, it rewards the optimization of the myth. Without narrative marketing, any product, no matter how vital, life-saving, or nutritionally dense, is systematically crushed by the commodity trap. If consumers view your output as interchangeable with a guy's down the street, they will happily insult your labor to save a single copper coin. This happens because the modern consumer has been conditioned to maximize their own cash velocity at the absolute expense of your human dignity. Intangible services and experiences can scale their perceived worth to infinity, while raw physical goods are permanently bound to gravity and local logistics. A barber can charge a premium for their vibe, and FIFA can charge millions for broadcast rights to an empty sky. But our street vendor is physically tethered to how many heavy cactus pads they can manually stack on a wooden cart before the wheels snap under the weight. Realizing that everyday prices are entirely fabricated by psychological conditioning feels exactly like a masterclass in corporate illusion. It gives off major Inception or Mad Men vibes. Master operators bypass the rational brain to plant a synthetic desire so deep that consumers will willingly liquidate their hard cash for an abstract concept. To look at this objectively, this psychological flexibility is exactly what allows creative industries like art, entertainment, and modern tech to even exist. If we strictly valued items based on raw survival utility like ancient barter, a canvas painted by Leonardo da Vinci would be worth less than a single loaf of bread. And this is just the beginning. Don't get me started on inflation. The ultimate reality check of the economic grid we live in is that value has never been a real physical thing. Whether you're dealing with a 1 peso vegetable on a dusty street corner, a 200 peso service from a local barber, or a multi-$1,000 FIFA ticket in a mega stadium, the price is entirely a story we have all agreed to believe. And in a world detached from barter, whoever writes the best story always wins the game. If this deep dive on the birth of currency and the psychological matrix of marketing gave you a healthy dose of skepticism about the price tags in your daily life, do me a massive favor. Hit the subscribe button right now and text this episode to someone who loves a good real-world reality check. Maintaining this podcast without corporate trackers or platform sponsors requires a genuine, copious, unhinged amount of caffeine. So hitting the Buy Me a Coffee link down in the description is what directly keeps the studio mic hot and the research moving forward. Until next time, stay analytical, keep your perspective sharp, watch out for the bargains, and I'll catch you on the next episode of LTS. Stay frosty.